There's basically three things you're going to need if you want to be successful at anything. And it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how young you are, it doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter where you were born, it doesn't matter the color of your skin, it doesn't matter what religion you are, it doesn't matter if you think you're a boy but you're a girl or you think you're a girl but you're a boy. It doesn't matter if you have anorexia, it doesn't matter if you have OCD, it doesn't matter if you have any other kind of problem that you can think of or come up with. Um, if you work on these three things, regardless of who you are and what your problems are, you can be successful at whatever it is you're trying to, get some kind of result from. And ultimately, before you even consider what is it that you need to do, you need to define very clearly what success means for you. Now, when I say success, there might be some images that come up to your mind. You might think, you're making more money. You might think that you're, maybe in a relationship, or maybe you're not in a relationship. You might think maybe you have kids or you don't have kids. You might think you're able to help certain people. There's a lot of different images that come up for different people based off of their idea of success. So before you can ever even, get started, the first thing that you need to do is you need to get clarity around what it is you're actually trying to accomplish. What is the end result? And also, what is the ongoing result? And I think when it comes to being successful, when it comes to, living life in a way that you feel like you're a success, it's just as important to define an ongoing goal as it is to define, end goals or benchmarks along the way. And the reason is because what you'll find is the more things you accomplish and achieve, the less meaningful each of those successes will be, and the less fulfilling the act of completing something will be. Oftentimes, what you'll find is you'll hit a new level of success, and you'll more or less feel pretty close to the same. And there might be some things along the way that you're like, wow, like that's pretty incredible that I did this. Like a lot of people have, as an example, like a dream home that they'd like to live in, or like a dream car they'd like to drive. And when they get that, they might be really excited for a couple of weeks, and then it's just a house or it's just a car. And, maybe with a house, it might be something, if you're really like interior decorating oriented, it might be something that for a few months you're really excited about because you're changing things and you're making it better and so on. But ultimately what you'll find is the more success you have, the less of an impact it makes on your day-to-day level of happiness and fulfillment. And so before you ever even get started working towards something, it's important to figure out what is the main thing, that you're struggling with. Like if you're setting a financial goal, what is the main outcome? If right now financially you're in a situation where you're barely paying your bills, you're struggling to make ends meet, and you're like, you know what, if I could make an extra $5,000 a month or whatever your goal is, if I could make that, then I'll know that I've achieved my goal in getting out from under these bills, getting out from under this debt. And that sets you up that you have in the short term a short-term goal that okay, when I'm making this extra $5,000 a month, I'll have overcome the main obstacle that I'm struggling with right now. Now, you have to be smart enough to go a step past that, because once you hit that goal and you're sustaining that goal, eventually you're going to see, okay, well, that fixes this problem, but my next problem is X, Y, or Z. My next problem is I'm not saving enough for retirement. My next problem is I don't have enough money to maybe help my family or to donate to a charity that's important to me or whatever it is. And so setting up an ongoing goal is kind of like this idea that you're always progressing. And that might be something small, like I'm making an extra $500 every month. It might be, something bigger, like I'm making an extra $5,000 every month. But this whole process of accomplishing any goal, it starts with this clarity around like, what does success really look like for me specifically? And you might find through this process of getting some clarity that some of the goals that you currently have or some of the ideas you have about success aren't even relevant to you. I know for myself at one point I had this goal of like owning a Lamborghini. And when I started looking at my goals and asking why and getting deeper into like why do I actually want this, I found out that like the only reason that I was interested in owning a Lamborghini was because the successful people that I looked up to all owned Lamborghinis. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, okay, well, does owning a Lamborghini make me more successful? And I was like, well, not really. Like, it's just a thing that I would own. Like, that doesn't actually correlate to my financial success. It just shows off that I'm financially successful. And I was like, okay, well, I don't even really like cars. You know, for me, my idea of success in that regard would not be owning a specific kind of car. It would actually be having somebody driving me around. It'd actually be me having a chauffeur or an assistant. So my idea of success was different. And so I had to think through that goal and say, okay, well, I understand why I was leaning towards this now, and I understand what my thinking was. Now I need to figure out what's actually important to me that I can measure, that I can shoot for. And then I figured out, okay, how much would it cost to have somebody that could drive me around all day? And how much would it cost to do that on an ongoing basis? How much would it cost to maybe even own my own car that somebody else is driving me around in that's, you know, nicer? Like a big car, like a Cadillac Escalade or something like that. And so this process of getting clarity allowed me to figure out, first of all, what things weren't important to me, and then secondly, what things are. And this is really the second part of you know, having success in anything, which is having clarity starts this process of creating focus. And you're really not ever going to have any level of very like highly meaningful and impactful success in life if you don't have the ability to sit down and put the work in. You're going to have to get up every single day and chip away at your goals. It's like a sculptor with a big piece of stone. Before it's a statue and before it's something beautiful, it's just a big chunk of stone. And every day, you know, over and over and over again, they have to go back to the piece of stone and chip away little pieces at a time. Unfortunately, due to the nature of our physical bodies, a lot of our bigger goals will take us, you know, most of the time, multiple months, more often, you know, years. The average millionaire is 61 years old. The average billionaire is 65 years old. And I think it's important to notice that if you look at all of the most financially successful people in the world, almost none of them did it before they were 30 years old. And basically nobody in the history of the world that wasn't born into a wealthy family ever became wealthy in less than 10 years. And that might sound a little scary to think you have to put in 10 years to get there. But if you really think about it, what that means is the pressure is kind of off in the sense that you don't really have to be pressured to like, how do I become a millionaire this year? Then you're like, okay, for the next 10 years, how do I work towards becoming a millionaire? How do I work towards X, Y, or Z? If you look at physically, you know, I'm really big into bodybuilding. I think it's one of the best things people can do for their long-term health and for their self-esteem. And it helps to build discipline. It helps to, you know, put you in a place where you have to work to accomplish something that allows you to then see that there's almost always secondary results that you get from doing something hard. And one of the things that I've noticed from studying bodybuilding is none of these guys that are bodybuilding champions like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler or Dorian Yates or Frank Zane or Lee Haney or any of these guys who have won award after award after award got there fast. It took most of these guys 10 years to win anything substantial. And during that time period, they might have had some wins along the way, but it took 10 years for them to go from being, rather average physically to then being, these big, impressive guys. These very, abnormally looking people. And so any huge goal, any big like life-changing goal is going to take about 10 years. In your finances, it's going to take about the same. In your fitness, the same within like your family and friend group. Once you've known some people, a good group of people for about 10 years, you're basically going to know them for the rest of your life. And if you pick right, and you're clear about what kinds of people you want, those are the kinds of relationships that are going to be there when things are hard, that are going to keep you up and to help you celebrate when things are good. And when it comes to your own, fulfillment, your own joy, your own happiness, you're going to find that it's going to take more than a couple of days of being happy before it sticks. And so once you have clarity, then you need to focus down on, okay, what are my like 4 goals? If you go through this process, you could literally sit down and just write down every single thing you ever want to accomplish. And so very practically, you say, okay, I want to make this amount of money. I want to do this. I want to have this many rental properties. I want to have this kind of car. I want to have this kind of house with these kinds of amenities. I want to have this kind of family. I want to have these kinds of friends. I want to have these kinds of experiences. I want to do this and blah, 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 blah. So you take the time and you write out every single goal you have. You have clarity now. Okay, here's everything I want over the course of my life. And it's interesting because when you do this, you'll typically find that you only have enough goals that you've thought through for maybe 10 years. After that, you're basically shooting in the dark. And the cool thing is that's probably a good thing, because if you accomplish everything you could ever want in your whole entire life in the next 10 years, what are you going to do after that? Right? You're going to end up in a situation where you're struggling to be happy because you've accomplished everything. Most of us can't even see 10 years into the future, let alone, a couple of years. And when you go through this process, you write out all of those goals, and then you start looking at, okay, what are the 4 main goals? Like, what's the one financial goal? What's the one fitness goal, family and friend goal, the one fulfillment goal? What is the one goal that if I accomplish that goal, I get all of these other things? And, for your finances, you're going to find one goal. Like, okay, if I was making $10,000 more per month, I would be able to do all of these other things on my financial goals list. If I had, if my body fat was at 8% or under, I would have the energy to do these other fitness goals, to run a marathon, to do this, blah, blah, blah. And you go through this process, what you find is you end up with 4 goals. So you get even more focused, you get even more clear. Okay, these are the 4 things that I need to focus on for the next, year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. In order for me to get everything on this list, I only need to get these 4 things, and everything else will happen as a result of that. And so this clarity then turns into this focus, then turns into the the discipline or the action, the daily actions. And the cool thing is, a lot of people who struggle with procrastination, it's not because they're lazy. It's because they're unclear and they're unfocused. It's kind of like, if you have just sunlight in general. Let's say you're somewhere it's sunny and the sun's everywhere, right? It's not burning everything though. But if you take a magnifying glass and you focus that light into a small beam, you can set things on fire. So that fire, that spark, that creation of energy, or at least that changing of energy is probably more accurate. That changing of energy into something more powerful is the result of clarity and focus, and then taking some kind of action to transmute that energy, to change it into something else. Now it's not just sunlight, now it's fire. In your own life, most of the reason why people are struggling to get motivated, to think that they even have to be motivated to get things done, is because they're unclear on where it is they're trying to go. So they have nothing to focus on, and then they don't have a way of coming up with the right actions to take to accomplish that. Like if you know your goal physically is to be at 8% body fat, you can go online. There's actually an organization called the National Academy of Sports Medicine. They have a calculator on their site that you can put in your goal weight, and it'll spit out how many grams of protein to eat, how many grams of carbs, how many grams of fat. And you can modify it based off of the way that you like to eat. Like some people prefer to eat more fat and protein and less carbs. Some people like to have really equal amounts that they're eating. Some people do better, eating maybe a lot more protein and a little bit of fat and a little bit of carbs. And you can just go through and actually get the numbers. And you say, okay, well, in a day, I need to eat, 2,200 calories. I need this many grams of protein, this many grams of fat, this many grams of carbohydrates, and I'll hit my goal. The cool thing about their calculator, by the way, is it'll show you. You can put in the date you want to hit that goal by, and it'll tell you what to do to hit that goal by that date, or it'll tell you that the date is too soon in the future. And so that ability to focus then sets you up that you can start reverse engineering your accomplishing those goals. And what happens is if you think I have to make $1 million and you don't know how to do that, it's very hard to take any kind of action because you have this thing that seems really big and you don't have any really big tools to make it happen in a short period of time. When you start looking at it more like, okay, in order to make $1 million, I need to do this, and then I need to do this per year for the next 10 years. And it needs to grow. So maybe the first year you make 100,000, the second year make 120, the third year you make 150, and then so each year you're going up a little bit. Technically, you could break it down that it's 100, then 200, and then like 250, and so on. But the main thing to remember is if you're looking at it on the correct time frame, and you're being realistic. Because every one of us wants to say, well, I'll do it in a shorter period of time. We all seem to think that we're so much smarter and so much more capable than these other people. Like even people like Bill Gates, it took him 10 years of working pretty hard, like basically nonstop for 10 years prior to before he was really a millionaire, financially successful. For 10 years, nobody knew who he was or what he was doing or anything. And if you look at all these people who are pretty friggin' smart, they had to work really hard. So don't be so arrogant to think that you're special and you're going to accomplish something that's challenging, like becoming a millionaire or being in competitive bodybuilding shape in the next 6 months. Be realistic with your time frame so that you can plan your actions in a way that takes into account the real world that you live in. You live in a physical body. Guess what? If you work out really hard, what's going to happen? You're probably not going to be working the same muscle group tomorrow and seeing growth and gains as a result. You're going to need days and months and years in order to get there. With your finances, every level of financial success you have comes with new problems and challenges. I've spent a reasonable amount of time day trading the options and futures markets. When you're trading a couple $1,000s, you can get into a position and out of a position without it affecting the price of whatever it is you're trading. When you're trading millions of dollars, you can't do that. It affects how much the price moves because it's a large enough position size that it actually shifts the marketplace. That's a different problem that you need to learn how to overcome. So at every level of success in business, if you have a business, you might be able to make $500,000 or $1 million a year in gross income, like total before taxes and expenses and everything else. You might be able to do that without having to hire a lot of people. You might be able to do it with a team of 4 or 5 people. The problem is, how do you go from $1 million to $2 million to $5 million to $10 million and so on? I have friends that are doing anywhere from 25 to a couple $100 million in business per year, and I can tell you my friends that are doing $25 million have different problems than the friends that are doing a couple $100 million a year, and their situations are different. They might have a team, at the $25 million mark, they might have a team of 15 people. At a couple $100 million a year, they have teams of a couple hundred people. It's like radically different, and what they need to juggle on a daily basis is significantly different. And so the point here is, first of all, don't think you're so smart you're going to skip out on reality. It's just not going to happen. It's like the laws of physics. You're just not going to be able to, like if you're going to shoot a rocket into outer space, you don't get to skip out on the immense pressure of gravity. You're going to have to expend an insane amount of energy to get into orbit. The same thing is true with every single major goal that you could accomplish. And so don't be so arrogant to think that you're just going to skip out on reality and the laws of physics. Set up a realistic time frame for whatever goal you want to accomplish, and then reverse engineer what do I need to do on a daily basis, and get numbers for everything. Get numbers for, okay, what do I need to do if I need to lose weight? What do I need to do if I want to build muscle? What do I need to do? Like, how long does it take to build a pound of muscle? If you're trying to put on 20 pounds of muscle and it takes 8 weeks to build 1 pound of muscle, it's going to take at a minimum 160 weeks. That's 3 years. You're going to have to work to build 20 pounds of muscle. So, and you might say, oh, I could take steroids or I could do something else. You could. And you're taking an extra risk, because the faster you grow, the more likely it is that your connective tissues and the things that connect your bones and your muscles together are more likely to tear and get damaged in the process and create injuries. The faster you grow, the more likely you are to get hurt. So yeah, you might be able to do it in 1.5 years instead of 3 years. You might also tear a bicep, tear a rotator cuff in your shoulder, tear something in your knee like your ACL. I mean, there's so many different things that you could screw up in the process. It's better to get there in good shape and feeling good about it than it is to rush the process, maybe accomplish it, and then have it all blow up in your face. A lot of businesses that grow too fast end up struggling worse than if they had just set up a plan that was a little bit more realistic. A lot of people in business do this where they run themselves physically into the ground. They're working, 18-hour days. They're eating fast food. They're not exercising. And, 2 years into the business, they're doing, $5 million in revenue. But they've got dark circles under their eyes, they're overweight, their family relationships are in the gutter, like everything in their life outside of that sucks. Does that sound like a good time to you? Is that worth it? Is it worth it to give up everything, including things you can't get back? Like if you destroy your family, that's it, they're gone. Especially if you're married. I mean, they don't have to stick with you if you suck. If you suck, they can leave. If your physical fitness gets bad enough, it is possible that you do irreparable damage. It is possible that you end up dying because you don't take care of yourself. You could have a heart attack or a stroke, and it could kill you. There's people every single day that think that they're impervious to, physical disaster. It happens all the time. You have to be smart enough to think through things and to be able to say, okay, I know what I want. I know what to focus on to set my goals and to get started. And I know what I need to do now to accomplish those goals in a realistic time frame. Now it's just a matter of doing the work. And the cool thing is, if you set up your life right, it doesn't really feel like work. Like, I'm filming this right now, it's 5:40 in the morning. I get up at 3:45 in the morning every day, literally every day, Saturdays and Sundays included. I'm up at 3:45 in the morning. I get up, I have a specific routine I run through in the morning. I have, a bunch of different things that I do. I'll give you a couple of examples. So my whole day is planned out the day before. So I don't schedule my day in the morning. I schedule my day the night before. So when I wake up, I already know at this time I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this. So I have a lot of clarity on a daily basis as to how things are going to play out, in what order, and why. When I'm scheduling based off of what's most important. And, 90% of the time, the most important thing for me is, capital preservation, meaning I am fulfilling for the clients that I have in my business. I'm fulfilling for them first. Before I do anything else, I'm like, I have coffee, I do some self-care stuff where I meditate. I've got like a red light I turn on while I'm meditating, and I do some journaling to just get some clarity. Okay, what are some things that I can do in my business? You want a really great tip on how to live an awesome life? Every day, come up with 5 ideas for how you can improve your fitness, your finances, your family and friend relationships, and your fulfillment. Just come up with 5 ideas. Some days, maybe it's all about money. Some days it's all about fitness or whatever. But every morning I go through this same process. I do a little bit of journaling and I come up with some ideas. What are some videos that I could post on YouTube? What are some things I could do to make my customers happier and then have them pay me more money to make them even happier? What are some things I could do to get in better shape? What are some things that I could do that would be, kind of add to the zest I have for life? This last weekend I went skydiving. Now I'm like, maybe I should be like going skydiving every month. Maybe I should be, doing crazy hikes or going for, doing marathons or something else. So every day I have this process because it sets up the whole rest of my day. I have the same process, by the way, on the weekend for my whole week. That I sit down and I think through my week. I look back and I review. I say, okay, what did I accomplish this week? What didn't I accomplish? What could I have done better? And what are my benchmarks for this upcoming week so that I can continue to progress towards my goals? And so when you've reversed engineered your goals in the right way, now it's kind of like being a painter. If you know what you want to paint and you already have the idea in your mind, you're thinking, okay, I want to paint a picture of 3 people riding camels in front of the pyramids. From there, it's just a matter of adding color and texture to the image you already know. It's the same thing with life. Once you know, okay, I want this kind of financial lifestyle, I want this kind of physical lifestyle, I want this kind of family and friends, I want to do these things because it's going to make me feel like fulfilled, like my life is important and meaningful. And so now all I need to do is figure out, how do I make my days so good that I just never need a vacation? It's kind of like, a lot of people, they can't wait for Fridays. Thank God it's Friday. They can't wait until they can take a vacation so they can leave their job. If you're living in that way, you're doing things wrong. You only have, as far as we know, you only have one life to live. And if that's the case, you should, as quickly as possible, find a way to not live in a way that you're looking forward to the weekends. I'm never looking forward to one day more than another unless I have something big planned. Like when I was going skydiving, I was really looking forward to it because I was like, wow, this is going to be so cool. But for the most part, every day, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm living at like a 7, 8, 9, and 10 consistently. I almost never have any days that it's like a 1 or a 2. And if I do, it's usually because something really terrible happened, like somebody important to me died or something. And so when you get this clarity and focus and then you start implementing your game plan and you build this discipline, you'll find that you can add a lot of color and texture to your life by setting up smart routines. Every day, as an example, at 3:00 in the afternoon, I've already been up for almost 12 hours at this point. I've already gotten almost 10 hours worth of work in because I also have to eat and go to the gym and everything else. By 3:00 in the afternoon, I've done basically 2 to 3 hours more worth of work than most people will do by 6:00 in the afternoon. And so I'm already at a pretty high level of success. I already feel really good about myself. I already feel really confident that I'm on the way to accomplishing my goals almost every single day because I've accomplished a bunch of things already. At 3:00 in the afternoon every day, I leave. I'll go for a walk. Sometimes I go to the beach and I'm just chilling. I'm literally just able to turn off my phone and just go out, be, in the ocean or be, walking around in the sun. And the rest of the evening for me, I'm able to focus down on the future in the sense that I'm preparing. And if there was a fourth thing I would add to this list, it's this idea of future casting, of looking ahead and thinking through okay, I'm probably going to have some problems. I'm probably going to run into some obstacles that I've never run into before, and I'm going to need to be prepared to be able to adapt. I'm going to need to pivot in my life at some point in some way, shape, or form. A good example of this is you might be getting into good physical shape and then you have an injury. I had an injury about almost 2 years ago. Yeah. And I was in bed for 6 months. For 6 months, I could barely walk from my bed to the bathroom that was literally 6 feet away from my bed. Now, I wasn't expecting that. Luckily, I've done enough studying that I knew that I was going to need, first of all, to go to physical therapy, but secondly, I knew what I could do to improve how effectively my body healed and then work with a physical therapist to figure out what I needed to do to never have that injury again. And so what I do during the evening time, and this is what I would say could be your fourth thing if you wanted to make this list of 3 into 4 things, is I'm future casting. I'm looking ahead and I'm casting myself into the future. It's kind of like if you're fishing, you throw the hook out into the ocean, you cast it out. I'm casting myself into the future and I'm looking around and I'm trying to figure out what problems am I going to run into. And the way that I do that is, first of all, I sit down and I think, and I review my day and I review my goals. And then the second thing I do is I spend a lot of time in the afternoons studying. I'm studying how to get better at everything I do. I'm studying how other people who are highly successful have already accomplished those things. And I'm putting the time into trying to make sure that I'm running into as few surprises as possible. And, if you ask anyone if they like surprises, they might say yes. If people were more realistic, though, 99% of the time, people hate the surprises that they get. People don't like when, surprise, you were in a car accident. People don't like when, surprise, the grocery store doesn't have, when the pandemic a couple years started ago, The grocery stores didn't have like toilet paper, and like there was random weird stuff that was running out. That's probably not a great surprise. You probably weren't excited if you went to the store and they didn't have toilet paper. So like people who are successful typically have created a process for being prepared to be able to pivot. If you look at, some like really successful people in sports, what they're doing during practice a lot of times is they're rehearsing what's going to happen when they face an opponent, and a lot of times they'll do this with their own teammates. Sometimes they'll do it on their own. And they have this process of visualizing the future, casting themselves into that future, and then exploring their alternatives. And if you're a younger person, especially, this might be hard. When I was 21 years old and I was first getting started in business, I didn't know anything. Like I didn't understand like what selling was. So like I started this business and I was working with a network marketing company, and there was a supplement company, and I started taking these supplements, and now I'm like, okay, now I run a business. I am a business person. And I was like, I don't understand why I'm not making money. And I talked to the person that was supposed to be mentoring me, and she was struggling, and I talked to her mentor, and she was telling me, yeah, you should join a gym, and you should do this, and you should do this. And I was like, I am broke. Like, I don't have any money coming in. I don't know anyone. I'm not talking to people about my business. And she's like, well, you can't build a business if you're not selling people. I was like, well, I don't know how to sell people. And so I was very naive. I was very stupid. I didn't understand how businesses made money. Then I was like, okay, well, I have a product I can sell. Now I need to learn how to sell. Now that I know how to sell people, I need to learn how to market so that I can get people coming to me instead of always having to go to people. Now that I know how to market, I need to learn how to do. And it's like you continue to find the next step in this process. You continue to find the obstacles that you have. So when you're young, the easiest way to do this isn't to just sit around thinking to yourself. You're not typically, when you're young, going to find the answers by going inwards. Like these spiritual teachings are like, go inwards and you'll find the answers. If you don't know how to sell, you're not going to find the answers going inward. You're going to find the answers by going out and finding people who are already doing this successfully. Go listen to audiobooks on selling. Read books on selling. Go find, people who are really great at sales and ask if you can buy them lunch and ask them questions about how to sell better. And just be honest. Like when you're doing this stuff, like a lot of people get weird about this like idea, like, oh, how do I get somebody to go to lunch with me? Like they're so busy and they're so important. Just be honest. Hey, you look like you're really doing well in this sales thing, and I'm just getting started. If I bought you lunch, could I ask you a couple of questions about how to get better at this? Or is there anything you would recommend? Like, is there 5 or 6 books you could recommend? And you'll find that people who are successful are typically more generous than people that aren't. And it's because they know what it's like to have to struggle to get somewhere. It's because they had to ask for help. People who just continue to be unsuccessful over and over and over again, a lot of times they're very arrogant about what they're capable of. Like, I have a friend that's doing, real estate, and he's not like really successful. I mean, he's made some money and he's doing okay. Like he's not losing, he's not unsuccessful. But I was telling him he should do this course from somebody that I work with that's doing literally hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Literally hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And he said, I should be teaching him the course and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, maybe you should. Or maybe you should be humble enough to say, hey, you know what? Dude's making literally hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Maybe there's something he knows that I don't that would allow me to double or triple or, 100x what I'm already doing. And so most people are too arrogant about what they're capable of and what they're doing. So don't fall into this trap of being like most unsuccessful people. Most people are going to struggle financially. They're going to struggle with their health. They're going to struggle with their relationships and everything else. They're going to struggle with these things, not because there isn't help available. It's because they're unwilling to ask. You cannot be so stupid that you're unwilling to ask, that you're unwilling to read books, that you're unwilling to go to seminars, that you're unwilling to do these things, and then expect that you're going to have any level of success. I can tell you as somebody who started a business at 21 and didn't have any success for like 5 years. I was just struggling. And then for a couple years, I was really making good money. And then I struggled some more and had to start over. Like, as somebody who went through almost 6 years of basically just failure after failure, I can tell you from my own experience and from reading enough books about this that, like, the more willing you are to ask for help and to seek out people who can help you, the easier it is to start seeing success, and the faster it is. And you have less gray hairs. You have less problems. And the cool thing is, if you're willing to invest in yourself, a lot of people say, well, if they're successful, why do I have to pay to take their course? Why should I have to pay? Why should you have to pay for college? Why should you have to pay for anything? If it's going to change your life forever, why wouldn't you pay? And if you say, well, I don't know for sure it's going to change my life forever, it's like, look, I'm pretty sure if you go and learn financially how to do something that somebody did that is literally making them millions of dollars, if you go and do exactly what they do, you're going to get similar results. It might not be exactly the same, but you're going to get similar results. It's like if you eat certain foods and you do certain exercises, you're going to look a certain way. I mean, everybody already does this anyway. If you're out of shape, you're already doing this in the reverse. And so, don't be scared to pay money. Like, why should people have to pay? Because they don't do anything if they don't. You have to be invested. It's like, why should you have to plant seeds if you want to have a garden? Why can't you just go say to the seeds, hey, or to the dirt, hey, I'd like to have a garden here. Get to it. It's because that's how the world works. Without an investment on your part, you're never going to get the kinds of results that you want. If you don't plant the seeds, you don't get the trees. That's the real world. And you have to be in alignment with the real world. You have to be able to accept the real world and the conditions of the real world, which is that if you plant the seeds, you might get the trees. If you don't plant the seeds, you will for sure not get the trees. And if you want any level of success, it's really, really simple. Get clear on what it is you want and why you want it. Focus on the, 4 things, one for each area of your life. Focus on those 4 things that are going to give you all of the other goals you would like to accomplish. And then on a daily basis, implement the discipline. Do the things that you need to do. And most people know what they need to do. Like, if you want to make more money and you run a business, you need to make more sales. If you don't have any more time on your schedule to be doing sales calls, you need to hire somebody to do sales for you. If, your marketing isn't working, you need to get better at marketing. If you don't know what to do to get better, start asking people who are better than you. And, don't be so arrogant to think that you can skip out on the rules of the world. You cannot skip. It's like if you decide that you're going to go from point A to point Z, you're going to, first of all, fail, and secondly, you're going to end up really frustrated because the real world doesn't work like that. You're going to have to go one step at a time, A to B, B to C, C to D. When you get really good, you can spend money instead of doing this manually. That's the cool thing about the financial world. A lot of people don't understand. They're like, why do the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? It's like, well, because the rich have habits that allow them to become wealthier, and the poor have habits that allow them to become poorer. And so when you start making money, you can start using that money. It's like every dollar you have is a little worker, and that little worker can go out and earn money for you. And that might be through you hiring people. That might be through you investing in things like stocks or cryptocurrency or, precious metals or real estate or, learning how to day trade or whatever it is. You can make that stuff work for you. And the same thing happens in your family and in your friendships. If you have really great relationships, a lot of times that will lead to other really great relationships. Some of the best people I've known, I've met as a result of a really great relationship I already had with somebody else that I thought was a really high quality person. Same thing with your fitness. You're going to get in good shape as a result of doing certain things, and that's going to lead to you, learning new things because you're going to continue to adapt. That's going to lead to you learning from new people who are going to allow you to continue to build out your tool belt for your physical fitness success. And so, be realistic, be honest with yourself, and get in alignment with the real world. The truth is, the time's going to pass anyway. The time's going to pass. And we're all going to suffer, or at least we're all going to experience pain in all four of those areas in our lives. It's just a reality of life. And you might say, well, why? I don't know why. Why does the sun come up in the east? Why does the sun come up at, where I live? Why does the sun come up at 6:45 in the morning? Why not 5:45? Why not 7:45? Why? Does it even matter? The time is going to pass anyway. We're all going to go through some things that are going to suck for us. It's going to be a pain in the ass sometimes, but the time's going to pass anyways. And as time passes, you can either implement that discipline to get those things that you want and get what you want as a result of your suffering, or you can go through the pain of not getting those things and all of the other pain that comes along with just being alive in life, disappointments, injuries, financial setbacks. You can go through all of that and get nothing. And this is the key trick with discipline, is everybody's got problems. Everybody has pain. Everybody will experience some level of suffering. But the way that you do things and the things that you work towards are going to determine whether or not it ends up being worth it for you. And if you look deep enough and you think deeply enough about this, you can find things that are worth suffering for. And then instead of just putting up with whatever life throws in your face, you're deciding what suffering is worth it. And, physically, you might say, okay, I don't want to have diabetes. I don't want to have a heart attack. I don't want to have a stroke. I don't want to have any of these other problems. So instead of suffering, diabetes sucks. People with diabetes aren't really happy. They're overweight. They have to do insulin. They have to do all this other stuff. That's not fun. It also leads to a lot of other health issues. Do you want to suffer through that? Or would you rather suffer through, okay, I'm going to eat, a pretty modest diet 6 days a week. I'm going to eat really healthy foods. And 1 day a week, I'll have a meal that is just total garbage. I'll eat pizza and eat ice cream, whatever. 6 out of 7's pretty damn good. That's 86% of your life that you're eating healthy foods. If you only had one meal out of, 21 meals a week, let's say you eat 3 times a day, 21 meals a day, basically 96% of your diet is healthy food. That's pretty good. Is it worth suffering through to not have diabetes, to not have a heart attack, to not have all these other problems? Probably. So that's an easy way of figuring this stuff out. What's worth suffering for? If I could have any outcome that I wanted, what would be worth suffering to have? I think good health is a good one. Having money to retire on. You know, you can set aside, this might sound like a lot of money for some people and hardly anything for a lot of other people. You could set aside $250 to $500 a month, and you can put it into an indexed universal life insurance policy. I used to sell these when I was in insurance. I'm not in insurance anymore. I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. Go talk to an insurance agent. They can show you illustrations on this. You can put $250 to $500 a month into an index universal life policy for 30 to 40 years and end up with between, $1.5 to, $20 million. And that all, accumulates tax-free, because the money you're putting into it, you're putting in after-tax dollars. So like you're paying taxes and then you're putting money into this policy. And the money that grows in that account grows tax-deferred, and you can take loans, meaning you could just pull that money out whenever you want to pull it out. And there's no interest to pay because it's your money. And so, a lot of the things that you could suffer for, is it going to be hard to make an extra $500 a month? For some people, it might seem like it's a big goal. But is it worth suffering to figure out how to do that and then to make it happen? I think being able to retire and know that you're taken care of and you don't have to rely on the government or the charity of other people is a good goal. It's worth suffering for a little bit. And the truth is, most goals that you're going to suffer for, you're only really going to suffer for like 6 to 18 months. During that time period when you figure out how to do what it needs to be done, that's when it's going to be hard. After that, it's just a matter of repeating the same actions. And you'll usually find, well, I can make an extra $500. What if I made an extra $5,000? What if I made an extra $10,000? And you'll continue to grow as a result. And, I'm going to leave this video with one final note, which is, if you struggle with your confidence, it's probably because you haven't accomplished anything worth being confident about. And so start this process by doing small things. And small things could be, going on a long hike, go skydiving, go learn something new, go learn how to surf, go learn how to skateboard, learn a new language, go help, at a charity, for a few months. Go do something that when you're done with it, you feel good about yourself because you know that you actually tried and you actually accomplished something and you're becoming proficient. The more proficient you become at doing something, the higher your confidence levels will become. And also, like, if you're not confident because you're physically out of shape, go start working out. Go start exercising regularly. Lose a little bit of weight. Next thing you know, you'll be like, wow, I look really good. I feel good. I have more energy. I'm noticing people are seeing me and saying stuff to me like, wow, you're looking really good. You've really leaned out, blah, blah, blah. That process of setting even small goals and then accomplishing them then creates momentum, and that momentum leads to you accomplishing bigger and bigger goals until you get to a point where you're not necessarily like so confident that you're being arrogant. You're just confident in a way where it, like, people can tell. Like, everybody I talk to, if I were to have somebody interview them afterward and ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel like Jeremy is? They would be saying Jeremy is an 8, a 9, or a 10 consistently. You could have 100 people, they would all give you at minimum an 8, a 9, or a 10. Why is that? Is it because I'm special? No, I used to be so scared of talking to people that my voice would shake, my knees would shake, my hands would sweat, my armpits would sweat. It was like a really stressful thing for me to talk to somebody if I didn't know them. now it's so normal to me that I don't even realize that it's hard. Like I start talking to people and I don't even realize that it's actually hard for some people because it's been such a long time that I've been doing it. That doesn't come as a result of me just thinking happy thoughts. That comes as a result of making a decision on a goal that I wanted to accomplish, putting in work on a daily basis to get better, to get better, to get better, to get better, until one day I just didn't realize that I had changed. And the cool thing about that process is that process creates confidence. If you lose a lot of weight, by the way, that'll create confidence. If you make more money, that'll create confidence. If you have better relationships, that'll create confidence. If you invest time into yourself, you spend time, like I said, I get up and I meditate and I journal every morning. If you put time into yourself, if you prioritize being your best self on your own time in private, that'll create confidence for you. So as you're starting this process, as you're getting going, if you find that you're lacking confidence, that's probably fair. It's probably fair to not be confident if you've never accomplished anything in your whole entire life. That's fair. Start stacking little wins so that that confidence will come as a result. And then you can see how this kind of just progresses and it starts to snowball. And eventually you accomplish things with such ease that people think it's magic. That's where that overnight success thing comes from. People are like, how does he do it? It's like one day nobody knows who you are. And the next day everybody thinks that you're, like the best in the world at whatever you're doing. And they call it an overnight success. But what they don't know is you've spent, 10 years in the dark working at it.